Okay, we're gonna get started. Welcome to the board members and Jared. Secretary's report. Haven't seen the secretary for the August 16th annual meeting. Is there any adjustments, changes, or anything?
I move with the acceptance.
Second.
Second.
All in favor of accepting the January 16th, August 16th, 2023 Board of Directors annual meeting minutes, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, good. Treasury report. Al is just about a week after his rotator cuff surgery, 2 weeks. So he's still down for a while. Okay. He can't drive for a month. Oh. So I think that's very tough. So he did send us the latest. So we have a balance in the Robert Smith fund of $18,320. We have the checking account, we have $6,670.94. And I just got the thing from, I just got the thing from Vanguard for our money market fund. I didn't really look at the total, I think it's 2,300 somewhere in there. Probably get that out. So any questions for the report this month? This is usually the time we get a lot of our donations in that piece, so all in favor of accepting the credit report?
Aye.
Oh, okay, aye. Okay, gonna be fast one tonight. Good. All right, OBP again.
Okay, a very successful summer cocktail party was held under the tent at the Osterville Historical Museum on July 25th. Steel drum music, a raw bar, and refreshments were enjoyed by all. Our next breakfast meeting is scheduled for September 12th at the Riano Club. Chief Michael Wynn of the COMM Fire Department is our guest speaker. Notices were sent out last month. We will be holding our fall cocktail party on October 17th at the chat room, sponsored by the Witter and Witter team of Compass and Kinlan Grover Compass. Invitations will be sent out when I get them.
Sorry, Gail, what was the date?
October 17th. Plans are being made for Fall Festival Day on Saturday, September 23rd. We felt the Village Day activities were very successful and well received by the residents and visitors. As the OVA has sponsored some of the Fall Festival events in the past, we are requesting you to vote $1,125 towards the music and children's events this year. This is less than the amount voted for last year for Fall Festival. And I would like it from the Bob Smith Fund. Our 54th annual Christmas open house and stroll is scheduled for Friday, December 8th, with other Christmas shopping events on the Saturdays in December. More details will be available at our next meeting. That's my report, and if I could have a vote on that 1,125, it will be for the music and children's events. Last year we had 1,600, so I'm asking for less.
Nothing goes down.
And this is for the Fall Festival.
Fall Festival on
Jeffrey Way. Yeah, okay. Do you have a motion? Do you have a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor of disbursing funds of $1,125? Yeah.
Yes.
To Gail for the Fall Festival, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, thank you.
You'll see these posters around it. I think they're very attractive to share.
Oh, yeah.
And Jennifer and Beth Serpenant did this, so. But mainly Beth, right?
Yes, yes.
Yeah, Beth is a new member of our steering committee, and she's really stepped up to doing things like this, which really nice. Thank you.
Okay, next one is election of officers. The 7-year in September, so we take nominations for the offices. We'll start with the president. Any nominations for president of the board association? You're on the program. Second. Any other nominations for president? Seeing none, all in favor of John Crow being president for next year? Say aye. Aye. Opposed? Thank you for your trust in that. Let's be vice president. Nominate Pete Hansen for vice president.
Second that.
We have any nominations? Seeing none, all in favor of Pete to remain as vice president, say aye. All opposed? Okay, treasurer, Al McKay is not here, which means we're definitely going to vote for this. Is there any nominations for treasurer? I'll move out Al McKay. Second. Any conversation, discussion? All in favor of Al McKay for treasurer for next year, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, and then secretary. You have a nomination for secretary? Ms. Crosby.
And Robin Crosby.
Okay, I'll second that. Any discussion?
They all are here.
Seeing none? All in favor of Robin Crosby, continue as secretary of the organization, say aye.
Aye.
Okay, great, thank you. Then moving on to town council.
Oh, yeah, great. Thank you, John. Yeah, so, first thing, the park here, we, will vote, to get a little bit more money for the demolition of the rec center building. And so it takes a month after the money gets passed for us to do the work. So approximately the first or second week in October, we'll actually see the rec building start to come down. There'll be some mitigation efforts first taken, and then actually the building will get dropped in the month of October, which is great. And then we'll also want to stand up a similar group as the one that's been in the past to talk about the playground that would be located between the tennis courts and the telephone building. Work on that has already been done by this group to a certain extent, and with the town, the village did have a partner who helped us design things. That person, I think, has subsequently passed away, but we have a new person that we're interacting with. And so we'll end up standing up some sort of committee, but it does seem to be an extension of the good work that has already been done in this room. So more on that to follow. See here. Yeah, yes, sir.
Ms. Richardson was very interested when it comes to study. So you might let her know that that's coming up because.
And Diane here.
I'm here.
Yeah.
I'm here.
Yeah.
Thank you. I heard it and I'm listening and I'm very happy and the faster moves, the happier I am.
Yeah, great. Yeah, so the demo would be this fall, and then we're talking about the playground possibly next summer, even shooting for a July 4th potential date. And then also there will be treescaping that will be done around the perimeter to give it sort of more of an internal feel or a separation. Pickleball, I think some folks have known our pickleball hours at those courts have caused problems for local neighbors, and the town is trying to do everything we can do to sort of make noise buffers and trees and bushes and other baffling things can be installed, and hopefully there are some folks almost, abutters who are thinking about things like moving or selling because of that noise, and that's an awful outcome.
Yeah, they're not alone. What has happened down at Falmouth?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's made on the front page of the Wall Street Journal. So.
A friend of mine died from a pickleball accident.
Wow. Yeah, on the court, immediately pickleball gets the people talking.
He's a doctor, he was our team doctor at San Diego for the America's Cup, and he fell and hit his head on the post. But he's a doctor, so instead of going to ER, he called another doctor friend, and they went over, put 3 stitches in it. 3 days later, he woke up and he said to his wife, "I got a splitting headache, you gotta get me to the hospital." Collapsed on the sidewalk and died of a cerebral. Wow.
Back to the playground, will there be an opportunity that one can appraise how it's coming along with studying?
Yeah, and that would
You're
be.
probably not into that, would you?
Well, in the design, we had a committee that worked on design. So hopefully that design is what the town is looking at.
The town doesn't have any interest in messing with the good work that's already been done, so it would be a review of the past work, and because there's been so many years that elapsed since then, so that would be the intent.
I would recommend you take a review of it.
Yeah, that would, I mean, a full committee would be stood up, and it would, last for, 6 months to a year. And it was something that we get set up sometime between now and November, December, yeah.
And I still have all of the documents and the samples and everything from that, so I can share that with you, with the town, whatever.
Yeah.
I'm not worried about it. Your good ideas.
Yeah.
Because I know you had some concern before.
Right.
You really went forward very progressively, so,
Right.
the two of you, so
Right.
that'll be good if you did it again. So,
So you said sometime between now and say December, put that committee.
The committee, yeah, right, yeah.
Yeah.
So we want to take recommendations from this
There's a
group.
bunch of that were already
Yeah,
involved probably, and the town have some people that, other than the consultant, that they want involved, or how that would.
Just one or two probably members of the Park and Rec staff, you know, John Gleason or Chris Ganella, myself, one or two folks from here. Adam Myrick's wife, Bob B, I believe is her name, is interested in this as well. And during my open office hours downstairs, 3 or 4 other folks have come through to be like, hey, what's the update? And I think they would all make for good.
Yeah, I think there's a few people involved.
Yeah.
Already.
Well,
All right,
would,
yeah.
would the
Yes.
village association appoint their own members?
Yeah, I feel like if that's I feel like it could be informal, it could be on the recommendation of in a conversation, or it could be somebody that we formally say.
I think
We
it
should
should
vote,
be
yeah.
village association should appoint their members that have worked on it for so long before.
Right. Actually, so,
It's, casual. But that's it.
yeah, that's my benefit. So we'll be voting on the demo money, on Thursday night. Also on Thursday night, Dr. Caitlin Coyle, from the Gerontology Institute of UMass Boston will be doing a presentation on age and dementia friendly Barnstable, an action plan. Something that really appeals to me. I don't know exactly what the contents will be, but that will obviously be no longer on channel 18. I think folks know now, if you want to see our HD channel, it is no longer on channel 18, it's 1072. If you want to tune in on Thursday night for the town council meeting and that presentation by Dr. Coyle.
One more question before you
yes,
go on.
yeah, sure.
On the change in channel, can we always get on, we'll always be on Zoom, we can see it, because, some of us don't have that, Comcast anymore.
Oh, okay.
So I'm wondering how we see that.
Yeah, I mean, there's no change to the other, it's just 18 no longer exists in 1072, but it's.
1072.
It's also channel 8.
I'm recording.
It is non-HD,
The
right?
Brooks, Twin Brooks thing. Right?
Going on right now, yeah.
I'm recording it on 1072.
Yeah, right, yeah, conservation. Okay. All right, couple of things, that are also going on. I think some folks have seen that the town is studying very closely, changing our benefit split with our 400 town staff and 1,300 school staff. Right now, the town is pretty much on a 55-45 split. It is generally shown that it makes us really uncompetitive in the employment pool on the Cape. And so the town is seriously studying 60-40 split, 70-30, and 80-20. And Director Mark Milne will eventually produce what the budgetary impacts for each one of those 3 scenarios will be. But there does seem to be a large movement towards effectively giving our entire town staff a much deserved raise by effectively changing the balance of who pays for their benefits.
I have a question.
Yes, sir.
Is there evidence that, there's been difficulty in hiring people?
Yeah.
To accomplish?
Yeah, superintendent, the chief of police, all the fire chiefs, all of them, and I know fire chiefs don't fall under this rubric, but yeah, they've all talked about both the double hit of housing as well as the fact that we are well below the sort of the mean in regards to what the Benny split is in almost all the other 14 towns. I don't think anybody's below 60-40, and we're at 55-45. Yeah. And so it seemed like in the conversation that folks were leaning towards 70-30, which would be where virtually all the towns of our size are in the Commonwealth. And we put us in a good spot here in the Cape. Yeah. Along those lines, also the police department, which continues to be down about a dozen patrol officers, is seriously looking at eventually removing itself from the civil service requirement. Some folks think it's super redundant, that it doesn't actually do the job that it was meant to do 30-40 years ago, which was to get rid of nepotism, cronyism, all the self-dealing that went into the hiring process. That is also a very serious sort of conversation. I'm not saying it's definitely going to happen, but the town is seriously looking at removing ourselves from the civil service requirement. Out of 360 or 351 towns, I think it's down to about 100 towns are left in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts that still make this a requirement. It seems to be something that's becoming less and less, it's more and more onerous. What the chief is saying is that the requirements of this is actually keeping us from getting really qualified people on the streets. And we've been down a dozen patrol officers for way too long. So it's a combination of the benefits. It's a combination of the civil service. It's a combination of the housing. Cumulatively, I feel like the town is taking some actions to try to at least, boost the morale as well as the pay and housing situation for folks like teachers and police officers. Yes, sir.
For us to, make a comment in some manner of strongly supporting the importance of first responders.
I think with that moment could come up. Yeah, I don't think it's presently this month, but I would say that that's certainly,
I think it might be good to go on record with, I know fortunately Gail and OBPA does a very nice job of having the truth. These the fire company first responders coming in honoring, we don't get to do that very much at all. And Osterville, also in their Zoom meetings, does an excellent job having the chief of police come, he sits at the head table, and they include the very complete meeting, well, at least once a year. But I think someone may be able to articulate it better than I, maybe Chuck, relative to saying how much our board respects our first responders, the most appropriate to make sure that they're adequately reimbursed, using something like that orally. So, so we can go forth to honor, relative to the subjects that they brought up.
Yeah. I do feel like it's something that's gonna happen within the context of, contract negotiations within the next calendar year. So I think we're making some sort of outreach or statement like this, supporting our first responders, definitely very valid. As far as it having impact on something, I would say that it's something coming closer to when the contract negotiations are underway. Yeah.
The fire departments, of course, are not part of the town of Osterville.
Right.
It's your
Separate fire district, so I don't know what their benefit packages are, but that's a separate entity altogether. So the only real first responder that's an issue for the town, police department. Yeah, and I think police hiring has been down nationwide. So
That's, yeah.
tremendous nationwide, everything's gone on because people don't want to do it anymore.
That'd be a comment.
Yeah.
Can I ask you informational question that I know the answer to? Why is the civil service exam, is that a problem? It's not an exam, it's a requirement. Why are they difficult? You said there's a lot of good people that, I'm sure it's not, they can't pass the test, but it's some other reason.
It is the entire gamut of things that then the police department does the exact same version of it. So each department does the vetting in the same way that now the civil service has been doing it. And so the idea is that it's just folks would prefer to go and apply to courses without the requirement, because it doubles the time. Yeah. Right. It has become redundant. It wasn't originally that way, and I think it's probably been successful. Like, I feel like whatever was being said about the makeup of, one whole family, like being the entire population of a firehouse or a police station, I think that has changed. And they've got better policing and firefighting from it. Comprehensive wastewater management plan. That was passed in 2020, so that was the first year of effectively it being in effect. It's only taken it up until now for us to see the construction. Part of that original law requires every 5 years a review of CWMP. So in 2025, effectively, a committee will need to be stood up. I would suggest earlier, closer to now, 2024, stand it up, make sure all the business needs to do gets done in 2025. But one of the things it needs to look at is, it's presently a 30-year sewering project. There's a really good chance with these changes in the DEP laws that have recently come out in regards to Title V septic systems, that we are going to end up having a very robust industry of innovative alternative septic systems, not sewering, like effectively getting a new septic system in your backyard that's space age, that's 21st century. That could come online. We could create those industries and stand them up before the 30 years out. And there might, if we study it right, there might be a chance we don't have to do the last 10 years of sewering. I'm not saying that my support for sewering is not wavering. It's, my question is 20 to 30 years out from now, should we probably try to be doing less sewering and a greater amount of these innovative alternative systems that really get the nitrogen and phosphorus out at a similar level as the sewer and possibly be less expensive by then. So that is something that you're going to hear more and more conversation about. It's adaptive management plan, and it's a 5-year review. So that would be in 2025 that we'd have to stand it up. I did just, along those lines, one of our favorite topics around here, I did just get the following email from Avangrid, real quick here. Survey work starting for Commonwealth Wind here in the village, starting as early as this upcoming Monday, going as long as 3 to 4 weeks. No digging, no road closures, police detail included. And it will all just be on the roadways, East Bay, Weano Ave, Main Street, Osterville West Barnstable, Old Falmouth, Old Stage, Oak Street, and the service road. We'll all see in the next 3 to 4 weeks, effectively, 1 or 2 vehicles parked doing survey work as they continue to seek, a collection of state and federal and local permits for their potential bid in January of next year to be the offshore wind provider. And then, sorry, just
one, they're still not considering East Bay Road, Old Mill Road.
I think East Bay was on, East Bay was on there, and Old Mill was on the list of streets that they would be doing, yes, so.
They are still considering.
Yeah.
Okay.
And they're also still looking at potential private partners for a landing as well, it's not,
Yeah, it says Weano Avenue from East Bay Road to Main Street.
Pardon?
It says Weano Avenue. No, it doesn't say.
It says East Bay.
oh, you got it too.
Yeah, does it say East Bay?
Does it say Old Mill Road?
No,
I
it just
just,
says Weano from East Bay to Main, so it doesn't say anything about East Bay Road.
Old Stage.
Yeah, so East Bay, wait a minute,
East
no,
Bay
no,
to Weano,
yeah, it does say, it says East Bay to Weano.
so they're not
Not
considering
going
East Bay
down
to
East
Old
Bay.
Mill, no. So they're not considering that.
I think can't speak what they're considering now for their alternative, but it's in their filings as their alternative.
Okay.
Yeah. Parker Pond, made it on the cyanobacteria list this summer. I think everyone probably knows that. We gotta fix it, right? And there's some partners, some abutters, as well as some folks that operate there, but I want folks to know that getting on that list is not ideal. It's really awful for anybody around there, and it's a critical pond here in our town, so working on that. There's a new app for your phone, My Barnstable, if folks want to get pushed various updates. Could be, hey, Dowsett Beach parking lot is closed because we reached capacity at 11 a.m. It's a great app. I'd strongly recommend getting on. It's My Barnstable when you go into an app store. COVID numbers are up. I'm just throwing that out there. I've now known 2 or 3 firsthand sort of reports of folks like people canceling stuff. So it's just all keep an eye on that and try to stay safe. I know there's going to be another booster available at some point in time this fall. I really want to strongly recommend the folks to use the food composting that we do at the transfer station. It's relatively new. I want to get that out there more. It's really great. We spend a ton of money effectively packaging up food and shipping it off the Cape as waste. And if we could compost it here and eventually develop it into something that could even, there's a bunch of transfer stations that compost their way into making money by selling fertilizer off the compost today. Not saying we're there, we're at low adoption rates right now, but when you go up to the level that is the recycling level at the transfer station, the very last shed is the food composting shed. Let's see. I did get an update from Izzy Rudy, who got one of the OBPA scholarships. She's settling in great at McGill. And she says,
We have not received their
You're
tuition
asking-
bills.
All right, yeah, I forgot about, yeah, I know you emailed me, I'll email them tonight.
Because neither one of the girls have sent their tuition bills, so we haven't paid their scholarships.
Okay.
Oh,
Yeah, I think that would be, yeah, I talked to Izzy's mom recently and she was the one who gave me the update, so and they mentioned how excited they were to have received it, so I feel like.
They haven't received it yet.
Yeah, received it, but not received, yeah.
VU and McGill, right?
Yeah, we need a copy
Yeah.
of their tuition bill,
Oh, that's what you need. Okay.
and then we send it directly to their school with their ID with it.
Okay,
Yeah.
I'll email them tonight, make sure we get that.
Just a couple more things. We've got 23 openings around town on 12 of our 44 town committees.
Right.
So if folks are looking for another gig around town, there's 2 dozen approximately openings on various town committees that definitely need to be filled. And my last thing is obviously, there's an election on November 7th. All 13 town councils are on board, and we will have mail-in voting. We won't have in-person voting this year. I think in-person early voting.
Okay.
Remember, No.
Right.
In-person early voting like they had in the hallway of the town hall for the last one, it'll probably be back to the presidential and the primaries next year, but it'll just be mail-in, with the early stuff this year. Thank you, that concludes my. Yeah.
I just want to back up to one thing when you're talking about the pickleball court.
Yes,
Does the town, or would it consider having specific pickleball courts that are set away from residents? And leave this as a tennis court, period, end of story.
yeah,
And, I just think it will be more effective that way. They wouldn't have the problem with people complaining, and it's really not fair, I don't think, to the people that live in that area. And it is noisy. So would the town consider designating, here's the pickleball courts for the town, and here's the tennis courts for the town, totally separate?
there is a designated pickleball facility up at the Marston's Mills courts, right? And
Yeah.
so that is very popular. I don't know if anybody gets a chance to drive by there and actually go through the parking lot or even play possibly, but it is extraordinarily popular. A couple hundred people will be out there on most mornings from 8 AM till noon, and that's dedicated pickleball usage there.
Right.
Unfortunately, the market for pickleball just continues to grow, and so the request of making tennis courts into pickleball courts outstrips people defending tennis courts. But there's plenty of folks still who want to defend tennis courts, including Butters and
Right.
the two down the street. And, I don't want to step on any toes because I don't really understand the history of it, but I feel like Barbara Hanson's original point was that there should be tennis courts here. Right, and so, because kids couldn't get, there's other folks who aren't members of clubs and they want to be able to play tennis, so I get that and I support that. The town is trying to give as many recreational opportunities to as many people as possible, and so there are reduced hours at these two tennis courts, 9 AM to 5 PM. But still, people play outside of those, on the shoulders, before 9 AM and after 5. And then unfortunately, a couple of local citizens feel it's their job to then enforce the hours, which puts them in a very difficult position, and it hasn't been great for the last 2 summers. And so the idea is right now is to try to sort of encircle the space with enough sound buffering as possible. But Diana, might be something that we have to do, which is no, these are tennis courts, that was their original intent, that's what got this park started in the first place. And I hear that argument as well,
Mhm.
yeah. There's also, there is a proposal, I don't know where it stands, but there is a for-profit entity who would like to put a large indoor facility at the new Kmart Plaza. I feel like they're in process of talking to Kmart Plaza developers, don't know if it's gonna happen or not, but it is a large facility that they're trying to take advantage of this moment where there's a lot of interest in that particular sport. Maybe if something like that could open up, it would help put downward pressure on the need for using these 2 courts as pickleball as well. Yeah. Yeah.
Well,
One of
Yeah, Mark.
the key points on the playground committee was not to shroud the playground because of predators and things, so
Yeah.
I want to make sure that doesn't get lost when they start shrouding the courts.
Interesting.
Yeah, they said that lots of predators will go if the
Right.
playground.
Animal Right.
No,
No,
People probably-
people predators.
they predate on playgrounds that are remote or hidden. So if you have two walls now, the building and the courts, and then all of a sudden, all of a sudden, we're causing a bad effect on the playground because they situated it
Yeah.
between. So, just the point.
Yeah.
I think that you should, my own feeling is, I agree with Diane, I think, you should probably do everything you can to resist the conversion of those courts from tennis to pickleball.
Mhm.
Nobody's suggesting a full conversion, just to be clear,
I
yeah.
don't even mean a partial, I don't even think we should have a partial conversion of it, because I just think that, we have two tennis courts down, and that's not a significant number of tennis courts, and I think that as a matter of a town-wide issue, I don't play either of those sports, so I have, but I just feel that, if you have a limited number of resources, which is what politics is, the allocation of limited resources. If you have limited resources in tennis, then it seems to me that, that we ought to preserve the few courts that we have. And even though there may be a decline in tennis players, there's still enough of them around that they should be able to have access to it. It's sort of so I hope there's not even a partial conversion into football.
Yeah, I mean, I really feel that the town should really look at and designate
Yeah.
a couple of spots where they're gonna have tennis only, period, end of story. And I do believe Osterville should be one of those. You know, and then tennis players know, because they also don't like to play next to pickleball players either, because it's very distracting. And so it makes it just easier for the tennis player to know that they can go there and somebody isn't gonna get on, because it can't be policed. I mean, it really can't be policed. But if there's a sign that says absolutely no pickleball there, it makes it a lot easier. So I really, I agree 100%. I think the town needs to look at that, look at where all the courts are, and make a designation. And I would ask you to just lobby for against pickleball being done here at this playground.
Yeah, so I feel like we can roll it into this emerging group that will be meeting on the playground itself. And I feel like this.
One point to consider is that like we, have 8 courts, will service 400 members.
Mhm.
And we've got 2 courts here to service how many, the population of how many?
Close to 4,000. Yeah.
And it isn't just us, it isn't just us, because anybody can play on the tennis court.
Right.
So it's not only serving this village, it's serving the entire town of Martin.
Right. And knowing that it's just.
And you have a
it's
limited
tennis
number,
court,
right,
period.
you have a limited number of those, and I don't know if they've taken them out at Marston's Mills, because they had a number of tennis courts there.
I think they're down to 2 or 4 tennis courts.
Yeah, so I mean, it's a declining resource, diminishing resource, so to speak, and I think we ought to try to preserve it. And I think that, the pitch is not only is it for us, it's for the entire town. So,
I agree with that. There was one people are for the stopping pickle there. Reason why I'm sort of for this is that when we had these long conversations, about how that was gonna be constructed, that whole area.
Right.
Is that, like, for example, we have the baseball field, but we're not green lights, so once it's dark, the latest will be is 8:30,
Right.
they're all gone.
Yeah.
Okay, 'cause this is a residential neighborhood. And I especially was very reassuring to the neighbors that this would be a quiet area at night, just during the day. And I didn't know pickleball. I remember Patty Machado was saying that's a new thing, we should have convertible courts. I didn't realize it made so much noise. I think to stick by what we were saying to the neighbors, our association should probably say, let's not have pickleball in those courts. Because it's sort of like, we said we're gonna be quiet, all of a sudden it's not. I thought it was, I didn't know what it was. But I don't understand, yeah, maybe they can, well, someday somebody will develop a ball that doesn't make much noise or something, but. Well, anyway, so I think that's the thought here, that I think that's a good idea, that we designate only for tennis.
Yeah.
Because we made promises to those neighbors.
Yeah.
So, I appreciate it.
And I think, Paul,
Yeah.
and I think Gail actually made this point, it shouldn't be postponed until we actually get the playground committee together. It would be appreciated, I'm not sure if we need to vote on it or anything here, but it would be appreciated if you would take this back now.
Okay.
Now, because the playground isn't really gonna be set, we've got another year or 2 down the road. It's easier to cut things off earlier rather than later, when everybody's gotten used to it. So my feeling would be, you presented this to our committee, and we very much want the playground to stay the way we had planned the playground to be, and that was a more quieter space, and the village would really like to keep it as tennis courts only.
Okay, yeah. But the pickleball has now generated 10 minutes of conversation here. And we have not even talked to, anybody who plays pickleball, sorry. And so we have to keep in mind that there are Ostervillians who also have adopted this sport and love it and, swear by it.
But that there still would be places
Yeah,
in the town of Barnstable to play, we're just saying, because this is so close to
Yeah.
residents, and because residents that we have that live in our village that may have been here for a long time are really having to put up with this, I think, I mean, we're not saying you can't play pickleball in the town of Barnstable, but this is a designated tennis court.
Yeah. Yeah, all right.
And I will say, during that whole thing, I think our assurances, we didn't have any pushback from the neighbors, because what we decided, and what we said was gonna do. Now we're getting pushback, it's sort of, it's too bad, I think, you know, it's what we nice.
It actually almost sounds like a change in use, right? If you intended that to be a quiet tennis thing, people bought their homes and invested in the property with the expectation of agreeing to live next to this thing. And it sounds that now here comes this, you know, really materially different sport by way of it being a neighbor. I don't know, maybe you want to sort of pursue that line with someone.
Yeah, well, we're also gonna be putting in a playground, and playgrounds attract screaming children.
Yeah.
So,
Well, then we used to be a school, and it was during the day, so we'd be screaming kids till bedtime, or 6:30, when 6 o'clock when they gotta go or something to eat, so that really fits within the parameters we have already set. That's all.
Really different. I'll take a laughing kid in.
awesome, thank you.
Thank you. Old business, one of the things was the checks for the fellowship we thought about. Anybody else have any old business? Seeing none, new business, next OBA meeting is October 3rd, right here. Anybody else have any new business, anything else to discuss before we begin? Whatever.
What is that matter of potentially having a safety issue, the driving and safety issue?
Oh, that's right, yes, I'm sorry, I forgot that. Mark brought this up about traffic and, maybe some mitigation for traffic into the village. And, I think a lot of us believe that something we can maybe do with a few signs that would help out. So I think maybe we can get some kind of a traffic engineer or something to meet with us.
Well, I should have, I mean, I would say 50% of the work that I do is traffic related and street related. Like, it is the constant conversation is really about how different driving habits are post-COVID supposedly. I mean, that's coming from the chief through Sergeant Perry in the traffic division. And so they have been on the receiving end of all the complaints that have come out of our village about speeding in different places, about the painting has been a problem, just so folks know. If you've reached out to me at any point in time, you're like, hey, that crosswalk needs to get repainted. And it's like, well, it's now after Labor Day, why didn't it get painted? We lost so many days of painting to rain this summer as a town that we are just deep in a backlog of getting back out and doing the road painting.
Could I
Yes.
just interrupt?
Yep.
I spoke with the DPW about the crosswalks. I was very concerned.
Right?
I said, when the signs get moved and trucks do move them, people are not aware that it's a crosswalk. And you see people just almost getting hit all the time. They came right over the next day. I sent them an email about that, about some no parking signs, lettering we needed in the parking lots, and about a sidewalk right in front of Pocket Posies that keeps coming up and people keep tripping on it. And they came right over within 2 days. They explained, they painted the parking lots. They explained the street, the crosswalks. They didn't say they didn't have the help. They just said they only do them 2 days a week, which basically is probably the same reason. And then it would be done after Labor Day. And they were concerned. They said it's not only Osterville, it's, I guess, all through the town, that the crosswalks need to be repainted.
Yes.
And so it is on their agenda, and they did answer me, and DPW did.
They started with the
Right.
fog lines and then they did the yellow lines. The problem doing this late is the street's not clean on the side, so they only did half the fog
Yeah.
line.
Right.
They had to stop with it with dirt.
Yeah. Also looking at, raised crosswalks. And having potentially upwards of 3 raised crosswalks. One between the Centerville River down to, let's say, Nancy Giatrellis's house, or, before Fancy's, between Fancy's and the Centerville River. People need to be tapping that brake as they come down that hill, but we all know that everybody gets up to 40, 45, and then they're all of a sudden in the village with a bunch of tight trees, and that's when they decide to slow down. The other one would be at another spot on the other side, and we're going out to 28, whether or not that would be on South County Road or Osterville, West Barnstable. Again, people tapping the brakes because they'd have to go over it's a speed hump, but made wider as in a tables for a crosswalk, and then one somewhere in the center of the village. Potential ideas would be in front of Osterville House and Garden potentially. That's already a choke point. It's also on a little bit of a turn, so it might not be an ideal location. The other spot would, yeah, and there is an existing crosswalk. It'd be on there tight. The other spot would be down below at in front of Wimpy's would be another good.
First, Garden doesn't work, in my opinion, because people, big perpetrators of this come in from the fire station in the morning.
Yeah.
In cement trucks, 18-wheelers, and they just gun it when they get to the flagpole and go right to Oyster Harvest or Wiana.
Yeah.
It's so in front of the house and garden would help, but not great.
Yeah, and so that, Russ Jacobson took it on himself and got that 25-mile-per-hour sign up in a couple of days, which was pretty awesome. And he said it immediately had impact that he's noticed. And so those signs are great. The problem with them is you'll see on the top is that they're solar powered, and we get about 5 or 6 seasons of use out of them, and they all cost about $5,000 or $6,000. And so we've got a bunch of them, but we keep burning through them, and it's our saltwater air. But every time that somebody's like, hey, I live at this neighborhood address, and people just keep flying by, that goes straight to the DPW as well as to Officer Perry, and then they decide where to place the actual assets. Those signs are smart signs. They have a laser on them that's not just recording your speed, it's reporting that speed real time back to the PD. And then in a few short days, they can tell whether or not people have started, their behavior has changed. They can tell immediately by the average speed when somebody hits this light, they're 37 miles per hour. We put that light in there, 2 weeks later, it's now 31 because people drive it, frequently enough that they get used to, oh yeah, you can't just sit past the Jacobson's house after you hit the flagpole because there's a sign there and it's gonna flash and it's gonna tell you how fast you're going. And so they're smart signs, they're great, but they're expensive and we don't have enough of them. And I gotta be honest, we all complain about traffic a lot for good reason, because every season that passes where we don't have a fatality is a very fortunate one, I would say, here in our village.
One more thing, you talk about 3 speed bumps. I think there needs to be one somewhere around Jamardi Insurance or Joan Peters. So it's,
Yeah.
I was thinking of a stop sign at the crosswalk for Joan Peters.
Yeah, right.
Which would be great, but it does not, like one before that. So therefore they don't come zipping around. That would be nice.
Yeah.
The other thing is the Barnstable ones in Barnstable Village, some are extremely high.
Mm.
They need to be elongated, not high. Because you see how many, not speeders, but regular cars that are low will scrape the bottom if they're too high.
Right, take a look at the newest versions of them are the ones that are into it. Yeah, and the mills, the ones in the mills, but as far as the raised crosswalks, the mills got the very high curves too. They got the 12-inch high curves. But if you want to see the new version of the flatter top raised crosswalks, the ones in Katuitt are the versions that we're talking about. People should know that if we do them, that means on either end, there will be 2 on either end, big yellow signs with flashing lights, in either direction. So it gives cars warnings that they're about to come towards a bump. That sounds appealing on the safety end of things, but it also does mean that it can, become, preclude people's vision of your company's store, for instance. And so all that has to be balanced out. We want to achieve greater safety, but it comes with some aesthetic impacts that we also have to be clear about.
What's the timetable, Paul?
It would have to be in next year's CIP, so vote on it in the spring, and then hopefully be able to install sometime in summer. Yeah. All the low hanging fruit as far as like painting and stuff like that. Yeah.
Just one more item to move on to safety, and I've been advocating for a number of years now, is on East Bay sidewalks. Because I do walk that to the beach. A lot of people walk that. I see people with baby carriages and a lot of bikers, and they do travel fairly fast on that road. Jim Crocker had told us a long time ago that there was money put aside for sidewalks for that, and that they were gonna start looking at what they could do because there was a potential problem. They weren't sure if they would have to take land in order to do that. I guess I would really like to know if there's any follow-up to that and to ask you to please, it is something I think we had a death on that street.
Is that right? I'm like that, yeah, what year was that?
There was, coming down, I'm trying to think of the name of the road. It was the first road that came down onto East Bay off of Liano. Who was the priest? Remember? it was-
Bates, yeah.
Bates.
Yeah, Bates, the.
Yes,
yeah,
Bates like
downhill.
that, yes. And so
Oh.
it was at that intersection of Bates
Oh,
and,
boy.
yes.
Yeah.
So I just really feel that, it is our way to the water. And a lot of people now, because, the Dowses gets closed so quickly, a lot of people do walk it. And I don't think people really drive carefully enough down the road.
Yeah.
They're in a hurry to get there. They want to get there before anybody else. And there's a whole bunch of walkers walking with chairs on their back. So I really feel it needs to be on the radar for the town.
Yeah.
Again, I would ask you.
It is definitely on the radar, yeah. You know, and I would say this will fall on ears that are unfunded and welcoming, but I think it got caught up in two things. The assessment of like what side it would go on, if it would go on the ocean side or the inside, that kind of created consternation with different sides of the street. And then I think more recently, it possibly could have gotten caught up in the conversation about an offshore wind company coming in and having to do road work in the first place, and that would just be part of the package. You're right, we're the only village of all the villages in town that has a town-sponsored or town beach that doesn't have a sidewalk to the very entrance.
Exactly.
And people fought that very specifically in the past. And so they got their way, and we don't have that today, and it is a thing that needs to be fixed, and you're right. But I think folks know that a right of way is 40 feet wide. If you walk off East Bay, you might get to 22 feet, which means that effectively 9 feet of creepage has happened on either side, and people have invested money in fences and in areas and et cetera. And so, yeah, it would have some impact on some people's property, and it wouldn't be taking because it's the town property in the first place, but it would be rearranging some people's front yards, and it could have impact on some old historic trees. So it's not a super easy thing to navigate, but it is definitely something that I've had plenty of conversations with about, like, how do we expand sidewalks? I want us to be all exercising as much and as safely as humanly possible. And so I identify with this as well, man, yeah. But I can't make any promises about what the outcome will be.
Well, at least they should be studying so they have an idea of which side and what they do. I mean, I always like that you plan ahead, because then when the moment comes and there can be money put aside, or whether it's that the wind farm comes up the road, that there's already a plan in place.
Yeah.
Rather than to say, well, we're not really sure, so we just put it on the back burner and nobody really studies it. Have the plan on which direction you want to go, and,
Great.
yeah, so, anyway, thank you.
Thanks, anything else? Okay, there's anything else, so a motion to adjourn?
So move.
All in favor?